In this video, I'll be sharing with you a requested tutorial from my group on how to cut this asymmetric neckline princess dart basque gown. So if this is something you like, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button. So to start, here is my pattern paper and I've gone ahead to mark my shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, and my waistline. So I'll go ahead to mark my shoulder divided by 2 and I will add half inch to it. Now from that point, I'll go down by 1 inch. I'll go ahead to place my ruler and I'll go ahead to connect. After I'm done connecting, I'll go ahead to mark out the neckline. I'll be using inches at this point. So after this, I'll just go ahead to come down by 3 inches. So I'll be using this as a guide. So I'll go ahead to connect. Next, I'll go ahead to find my chest line, which is my bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. Mine is 7 inches and I made a mark and I marked at that point. Next, what you have on the shoulder, I'll go ahead to mark my shoulder divided by 2 and I'll connect, drawing out a straight line. After I'm done marking that, I'll go ahead to divide what I have here into 2 and I'll go ahead to mark. After I'm done marking, I'll come out by half inch here. I'll go down to my chest line and I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4. Now I'll connect to the midpoint from that point and I'll connect to the upper part. After I'm done connecting, I'll go ahead to mark my dart. I'll mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2 and I'm going to mark this all the way to the lower part of my pattern. So I'll go ahead to introduce my ruler and I'll draw out a straight line at this point. Now for my dart intake, for the sides of my bust, I'll mark 1.5 inches and the side coming in, I'll mark half. So go ahead to also mark that for my waist. I'll mark half here and 1.5 at the other side. So for a plus size person or someone that is a bit busty, you'll be using 1 inch at the part going inside and then 2 inches at the other side. So I'll go ahead to connect this and after I'm done connecting, I'll go ahead and use my marker to outline my pattern. So after I'm done outlining, I'll place my curved rule, connect from my bust to my under bust and also repeat this at the other side. Now after I'm done connecting, the next step is to go ahead to divide what you have at the armhole into 2. And that is the midpoint of your armhole and you're going to go ahead to connect it to that point. So after I'm done connecting, I'll go ahead to mark half inch dart intake for both sides of my pattern. Now I'll be connecting these to the bust area of my pattern, connecting it to the main line. So after I'm done connecting this, the next step I'm going to take is to extend that half inch dart intake on both sides, giving me 1 inch out. Now I'll blend it back into the armhole of the dress. So the next step is to go ahead to impute my measurements after I'm done marking out these areas. Now at the bust, I'll be marking my bust circumference divided by 4, which will give me roughly 8.3, and I'll measure the dart intake replace at the armhole and then add the sewing allowance. So I'll mark the under bust measurement divided by 4, replace this dart intake and add my sewing allowance. My under bust is 28, divided by 4 I have 7. Now measure the dart intake and replace. So my under bust and waist measurement is the same, so I'm using that for both the under bust and waist. At the hip, I'll mark my hip circumference divided by 40, measure the 2 inches dart intake, replace and add my sewing allowance. So I'm not using the actual sewing allowance for this pattern because I'm not actually making the dress. It's a pattern drafting class. So now after I'm done marking this, I'll go ahead to transfer all these measurements I have here to the other side of my pattern also. I'll go ahead to mark my bust dart, and to find your bust dart is the difference between your shoulder to waist in front and your shoulder to waist at the back. So mine is 1.5 inches because my shoulder to waist in front is 17 and my shoulder to waist at the back is 15.5 inch, so giving me a bust depth of 1.5. That is taking away 15 from the 17 inches. I'll have 1.5 inches left. So I'll mark it after the under part of my bust, and I'm going to shed it out. Now the next step is to go ahead to alter this pattern. So by the side, I'll go up by 2.5 inches, and at the center I'll come down by 6 inches from my waist, and here I'll come down by 2.5. Now you want to blend up your dart, and you're going to be connecting this all the way down. After I'm done connecting this, I'll go ahead to also connect the other side, but I'll first of all reblend here, and after that I'll work on the other side of my pattern also. Now place your curve through and connect. So after you're done connecting, you also want to go ahead to make sure that what you have at the both sides align before going ahead to join your pattern. So I'll just go ahead and reconnect, and I'll be cutting this pattern out. So before going ahead to reconnect, I went down a bit by 1/2 inch after the 6 inches at the basque area of the dress. So on the neckline from this side, you're going to go ahead to come out by 4 inches, and then from here come down by 7 or 6 inches. Now I'll go ahead to place my ruler and connect. At the other neckline, I'm using 3 inches. Now come down at least by 3 inches, connect, and after connecting, I'll go in a bit by 1.5 inches here. Now I'll be going down to this point, and I'll come out again. I'll blend in this part very well, go down by 1 inch and come down by 1.5 inches here. From this point, I'm now going to go ahead to extend it all the way to that end. So after this, I'll just go ahead and use my marker to outline, and I will cut out this pattern. So if you have any question regarding this pattern drafting, please don't forget to leave your question at the comment section. And at this point, if you haven't yet subscribed to the YouTube channel, go ahead and hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and also leave your comment. So I'll just go ahead to cut out the rest of my pattern. When cutting the sides of this pattern, also remember to blend in your dart, and I'll cut out the rest of my pattern. After I'm done cutting it, we'll be moving over to the back pattern of the dress. Now moving over to the back pattern, I've gone ahead to mark out all the basic measurements just like I did for the front pattern. Placing my tape from the shoulder to waist, you notice that I have 15.5. So for this neckline, one will be 3 inches while the other will be 3.5 inches. So after using one part of this pattern to connect to cut out your back pattern, you're going to use the other side and extend it by 1/2 inch and reconnect. Now after marking this, you want to go ahead to mark your dart for this pattern. Also before doing that, you're going to come down by 2 inches at this point, just like we did after the waistline of the front, because there's a basque at this dress also. Next, you'll be marking your nipple to nipple divided by 2 and connect, and I'll place my ruler to draw out a straight line. So after I'm done marking this, you're going to be marking your dart intake. I'll come down by 1 inch from the bust and mark 1/2 inch at the lower part of my pattern, and I will go ahead to connect. After I'm done connecting, I'll go in with my marker and I'll outline. So remember, the basque of this dress is not totally included in the length of the dress. I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4 and add my sewing allowance. Mark my under bust circumference divided by 4, measure this dart intake, replace and add my sewing allowance. Mark my waist circumference divided by 4, and I will go ahead to add my dart and also my sewing allowance. So this dress has a basque also at the back part of this pattern, so you also want to go ahead to include that, which I did. So at the basque length, you can mark your hip circumference, or I'll just go ahead and mark that 6 inches we came down from at the center part of the basque of the dress, just like we did for the front. Now you notice that the front basque is half inch longer than that of the back. The back should not be that long. I'll go ahead to extend back the dart that I marked at the upper part, and I'll go ahead to reconnect. After I'm done reconnecting now, I'll go ahead to mark my hip circumference divided by 4, replace the dart intake and add back my sewing allowance. From the waist, I'll connect to that point and connect to my under bust, to the bust and to the chest line, and I'll go ahead to outline this. After I'm done marking this out, the basque part, you want to come in by your sewing allowance first on that 2.5 inches we came in. Blend your pattern this way and go ahead to connect your basque. Now at the zipper line, you're going to go ahead to take a straight line at this point. Also remember that you're going to take out the bulginess at the back of your dress by marking ½ inch, extend it to the lower part and also take it all the way up. Now the total length of this dress, let's say it's about 35 inches. So the length that is included is your shoulder to waist plus the 2.5 inches. The basque part is not included in the length. So I'll go ahead to cut out my pattern, and there are two ways to go about this: to cut out the darts or to leave the darts and sew it up as one piece, or to connect it to the armhole to create a princess dart effect. So let's say the total length of this dress is 39.5 inches. So now our shoulder to waist is 17 inches. You're going to use your shoulder to waist at the front to calculate, and then plus your basque length of 2.5, making it 19.5. So you're going to take out that 19.5 from the 39 inches. So the gathers part of your dress will be 20 inches, because 39 minus 19.5, you have 20 inches. You will use that for the gathered part of this dress, and it should be at least 3 yards in length. So I divided the armhole and I'll go ahead to connect and cut it out. This is to give the dress a princess dart effect at the back. If you don't want to do this, you can go ahead to just leave it that way. Next, what you're going to do is to mark out your sleeve. So I'll use a basic sleeve pattern for this. So I marked my shoulder to elbow point and I'm going to draw out a straight line. At the upper part, I'll be marking out my starting line. So I included this in the total length of my dress, and I'll mark a straight line at that point. After marking that, the next step you need to find is your sleeve cap height, and to get that is your bust circumference divided by 12 plus 0.5 inches, and I'll go ahead to draw out. Now measure round your armhole, that is the round part of your armhole, and you're going to mark that at this point, but you're going to be dividing whatever you have by 2. Then go ahead to place your ruler and connect. After you're done connecting, you're going to divide what you have here into 2. Mark the midpoint this way, and from here mark it again, divide it into 2 and divide this side into 2 again. So you have 3 dots. So place your tape and mark ½ inch on top, and at the last dot mark ½ inch below. Now go ahead to connect this to the midpoint, and also go ahead to connect it to the lower part and then to your armhole round circumference. So I'll just go ahead and add ½ inch all the way around. This will be serving as the joining allowance of the sleeve. So after that, I'll just go ahead and use my marker to outline that part. And next, I'll go ahead to insert my elbow round circumference divided by 2 and mark ½ inch or 1 inch, whatever allowance you want to use, but it shouldn't be much. Now mark my round wrist measurement, and I will add my sewing allowance and connect. So after this, I'll just go ahead and cut out my sleeve. So with this, we have come to the end of today's tutorial.